Okay. So, may I ask if you are now seeing our screen? Please do confirm po kung nakikita niyo ang ating screen.
Yes,
Yes
sir.
po.
Yes, sir.
Yes po.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So, okay, so this will be the first module for the subject Office Administration 8, which is business report writing. So, let me So for the course description of this subject, for this subject I will be discussing to you on how to prepare business letters, reports, memoranda, and minutes of the meeting. Hello, naririnig niyo ba ako? Hello,
Yes
Opo,
po.
naririnig
sir.
ako?
Opo.
Okay, so I think it's only Kenneth who has a problem with
Yes
the
po, sir.
audio. Okay, Kenneth, kindly fix your audio. Okay, so for this subject, what we'll be dealing with is more of on how to write business letters, reports, memoranda, and minutes of the meeting. Considering that all of you here are taking up office administration, so it's very important that you really need to be particular on the procedures. Let's say, for examples, on how to write the minutes of the meeting and what are the different things to consider when you are writing your business letters, reports, memoranda, and minutes of the meeting. So, in your English language enhancement subject, you already had the background of the different techniques on how to write an effective sentence, effective paragraph when it comes to formal language. So, for this subject alone, our focus is on the application of those things that you learned from your English language enhancement course. So at the end of the semester, it's expected from you that you will be able to apply the principles of effective writing in oral and written activities. Secondly, identify the essential parts of a business letter, reports, memorandum, and minutes of a meeting. Describe the qualities of an effective business letter, reports, memorandum, and minutes of a meeting. Determine the different types of business letters. Describe the purpose of report writing. Understand the difference between formal and non-formal reports. And apply the key principles in writing non-formal reports. And write and present business letters, reports, memorandum, and minutes of the meeting. So it's expected that the whole semester, what you will be doing is you will be writing a letter, you will be writing reports, memorandum. It's more of application. So I will only just discussing some points, and then afterwards, it's up to you on how you're going to apply those principles that I will be discussing here in the class. Okay, so this will be the content of the whole subject. So for the first module, it's more of business letter writing. So the whole prelim, we will be tackling about business letter writing. So I will be teaching you on how to write the different types of business letters. So I only select five. Actually, there are 10 types of business letters, but I only select, I think, seven business letters to discuss in this class. The whole first term or the whole preliminary period. And for midterm period, I will be focusing on how to write reports, okay, which is also very lengthy discussion. So that is why for the whole midterm, it's allotted for report writing. And for the final period, we'll be focusing on how to write a memorandum and finally on how to write the minutes of a meeting. So basically, we all have four topics to discuss. But again, this is an application of all the principles that I will be discussing. So it's expected from you that you will do a lot of writing for this subject. Kaya nga the course is business report writing. Okay, so we said, according to Shakespeare, an apparel proclaims a man. Okay, so an apparel proclaims a man. So when we talk of an apparel, we are pertaining to the dress that we are wearing. We do have this saying that what you are wearing tells who you are. So it's the same with when you are writing a business letter. What you are presenting in your letter, the presentation of the letter itself will reflect who you are. So let's say, for example, that if your letter contains a lot of grammatical errors, and then your future employer read your work, then your employer will have that kind of assumption na more likely this person cannot really do well on the job because by just merely reading the text or the content of the letter itself, then this person will not be an effective one. Okay, let's say you're applying for a secretarial position, since most of the graduates of office administration will be applying for secretarial job. And as part of your job as secretary or someone working as a clerk in the office, they notice that you are lacking when it comes to the proper usage of grammar. You don't know the correct formatting of the letter. So more likely that will be a sign that you might not be able to get a job. So it's very important that you will be able to present your business letter properly, okay? Following the required format, following the required content, among others. So all these things will be mentioned or discussed in our discussion for this afternoon. So these are the general principles in letter writing. So we saying a while ago that what you are presenting, what the letter that you are presenting reflects who you are. So these are the things that you really need to ponder on while you are doing your letter. So first, be clean and neat. Be clean and neat. Let's say, for example, you have a piece of paper. Then let's say you're applying for a job, and then that piece of paper looks like this. Okay, so seems like meron kang naka-fold dyan. Okay? And naka-crumpled yung paper, so it does not look clean and neat. So again, apparel proclaims a man. So the employer or the person who is looking at your letter or your resume or your letter or your application letter would already have the idea that this person is not really uh, good at when it comes to presentation. So as much as possible, avoid folding your application letter. So it's very important that there should not, even in your resume. So it's very important that you have a clean paper without any stain on it and it is not folded. Okay, so How are you going to avoid that? So right after you printed your application letter, then there's a need for you to put that inside a folder or inside the envelope and secure that it will not be crumpled. So because that's the best way that you can do in order for you to maintain the cleanliness and neatness of your letter. So that's the same thing with if you are already working in a company and then your boss tells you to write a letter. So it's the same thing that you also need to observe cleanliness and neatness. So next we have be businesslike. Be businesslike. So when we talk of being businesslike, the tone of the letter matters a lot. So for this lecture, I will be giving you some insights on how to make your letter sounds businesslike. Okay, so you really need to be particular of the formatting. Okay, I'm pretty sure that you already have idea of the formatting that I am mentioning here about business letters because you already have for sure your typing subject wherein typing sub your teacher in your typing subject had already taught you or discussed to you about the different forms of indentation. Okay, so that's part of achieving a letter that is businesslike. It's not only on the content itself, but it's something to do with the appearance of the letter that you are presenting. Third, which is very important, be brief and go directly to the point. Okay, let's assume that you're applying for a job and then you have a very lengthy um, letter. Do you think that the person who will be recruiting you for that particular job will have enough time to read your two-page letter? Apparently they don't have much time considering that they do have a lot of works to do, they do have a lot of letters to read. So when you are writing a letter, go direct to the point. There should not be a lot of palabok or a lot of flowery words before you go on with your with the main point of your letter. However, we do have the so-called sales letter. Sales letter. So sales letter should be different from the other forms of letter, other types of letter. Where in sales letter, there is a need for you to be flowery with the language that you are using because you are selling. However, among the other types of business letter, there is a need for you to go directly to the point. If you would like to say something about the problems with regard to the products that you are selling, or let's say for example for the adjustment letter that you are going to give response to the claim or the complaint about the product that your company is selling, then go directly to the point. Okay? So that's a very important aspect in letter writing. Then the next is be courteous or polite. Okay, be courteous or polite. So in the Philippines, we are used to begin our letter with a greetings. To say good day, greetings in the name of public service, greetings in the name of peace. Okay, so if you are a politician, usually they are using greetings in the name of public service. Okay, but if we are referring to the general greetings in the letter by just merely saying good day. Okay, do not say good morning or good afternoon because you do not have control as to when the letter will be received by the recipient. So you are safe if you will be saying good day at the beginning part of your letter. So it's one way of being courteous or polite. Secondly, there are some instances wherein you will be writing a complaint letter. Although it's a complaint, reclamo, there you should sound as if you are still courteous to the person. So let's say for instance you are asking for uh, a product that is incorrectly sent to you. Let's say for example uh, you purchase your company where you are working at, the company where you are working at purchase, let's say, 100 boxes of school supplies, 100 boxes of bond paper. However, what was sent to you were only 90 boxes, short of 10 boxes. Are you just going to yell at the person who delivered it? Okay, so that should not be the practice. So you should at least be courteous of telling the person that the product is short of 10 boxes. Because on the first place, if you are keep on complaining with wherein you are just bragging and yelling at the person through the letter, that person who will be reading your letter will not be paying attention on your concern. However, if you will be saying it politely or writing it in a letter in a polite manner, then the person who will be reading your work will give the response to you in a polite manner as well. So, um, it's very important that your letter should be courteous or polite. Okay. Then we have be prompt. Be prompt. It happens. Let's say, for example, if you do have your uh, adjustment letter. Okay. Claim and adjustment letter come together. Adjustment letter is the letter of complaint by, let's say, by the customer, and the adjustment letter is the response to the complaint or to the claim letter. So be prompt, meaning it means to say the moment that you receive the letter, you have to give response to it. Let's say, for example, you receive the letter of complaint or an order letter, or it could be a request letter or a letter of inquiry today. And since it's your job to give response right away to the concerns of your customers, then you have to be prompt. You have to give your response right away. Do not take it so long. Okay? So you receive it today, then you will be responding the next week. The next week, though, that shouldn't be the practice. So the moment that you receive it today, then you have to give response to it as soon as possible time. Okay, because that's one way of treating your customer fairly. Okay, one way of treating your customer fairly if you are responding promptly to them. Be self-critical. And this subject will help you to be self-critical. When we talk of self-critical, it has something to do with you yourself is the one who will be rereading your work, who will be checking your own work. Because not almost of the time, your superior is not always there. Your superior is not always there to correct you or to tell you on what to do. Okay? So it is for this reason that you really need to train yourself, to immerse yourself, to expose yourself into this kind of uh, application wherein you will be exposed into a lot of writing. And that alone will help you to be self-critical. Again, when we talk of self-critical, it has something to do with you yourself is the one who will be correcting your own mistake. You will be the one to check as to whether the content of your letter is right or correct. Okay, so it is your responsibility. Again, not all most of the time your superior, if you will be working, not almost of the time your superior will be there to check you. Or let's say, for example, you're applying for a job and then you're writing an application letter. Not almost the time your teacher will be there to correct your application letter. Okay, not almost of the time you have a friend who will tell you that the content of your letter is incorrect or that there are some grammar errors with your letter. So it's very important that you yourself will be self-critical enough for you to check your own work. Okay? So be complete and thorough. So let's say, for example, you are writing an order letter that is a communication between your company to another company. You're asked by your superior to write an order letter, let's say um, to order 10 boxes of bond paper from company B. So you really need to complete all the details of what you will be ordering. What is the size of the paper, the 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 number of boxes that you will be ordering, the date that uh, is required from them to send the said package or the said product. So you really need to complete all the details so that there will be no more question with regard to the delivery of the said product. Okay, so be complete and thorough. That's what we meant by this principle in letter writing. Okay, so this time, this time I will be sharing you about the appearance of a business letter. So we mentioned a while ago that an apparel proclaims a man. What you are presenting based on your letter will tell who you are. Okay, I keep on reminding you that. So what will be the appearance of your business letter? So obviously we are using white bond paper. So do not use any stationery. Okay, so you are not writing a letter to your girlfriend or to your boyfriend. So do not write a letter in a stationery paper. So when talk of stationery paper, this is a decorative paper. So avoid too much color. So just plain white paper will do because again, that's one way of achieving business-like appearance. It should be good of good quality and unruled. So what do we meant by unruled? Okay, I just going to get some paper here. Okay, when we talk of unruled, it's simply as a blank page. Okay, simply as a blank page. There's no need for you to put a margin. What I mean is to put a line here that represents the margin. There should be an imaginary margin. And obviously, since all of you are using computer, desktop computer or laptop computer, so you can set the margin. Commonly, most of the companies are using letter size. And when we talk of letter size, it's 8.5 by 11. So in URS, we are using A4 size. Okay, that depends on the company where you are working. So in our case, in URS, what we are using is an A4 size. Why? Because not all people are using A4 size. It's one way of protecting the document. Okay, so in our case in URS, we are using A4 size. But in many companies, they're using letter size. There are some instances wherein they are using a long, they are using a 8.5 by 13. When we say 8.5 by 13, we call it the folio size. Folio size. Okay, yung tinatawag nating long bond paper. But the more technical term for that is folio. Folio. Folio size. Then, if you will be using envelope, so the envelope should match the quality of the paper used. Okay, since snail mail, when we talk about snail mail, this is the traditional mail. Um, there are only few are now using who are still using the snail mail. But since many of the communication letters that we are receiving from company A to another company, from company to another company is done through email. So it's still if you will be working in a company wherein that requires you to use envelope, then more likely that the quality of the envelope should match the quality of the paper used. And most of the companies do have their own template for their envelope. They have their own design for their envelope. So sometimes you notice that there are envelopes wherein it has a transparent part here wherein you can see the name of the person who will be receiving the letter. So it's far different from the traditional envelope of a letter wherein you just handwrite the name of the person who will be receiving the letter. So it's far different in the business world. Okay, this is what I'm mentioned about the margin and the spacing. So a letter should appear like a beautifully framed picture with margins in proportion to the length of the letter. So top and bottom margin is 1.5 inch and both sides margin is 1 inch. This is only applicable if your company is using letterhead. Okay, what is later on I will mention of the letterhead. That is why it's 1.5 inch at the top and the bottom. However, if you will not be using a letterhead, it's okay to use a 1 inch margin on all sides. Again, if you will not be using letterhead, it's okay to use a 1 inch margin in all sides, top, bottom, and on both sides. Okay, that's acceptable. But however, if you do have your letterhead, then more likely you can use 1.5 inch. Sometimes they're using 2 inches uh, margin on the upper side just to give space for the letterhead. Okay, so single spaces are used within the parts of the letter, while double spaces are used between paragraphs in between paragraphs of the letter. However, it should not always be the case. Sometimes there's really a need for you to adjust the 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 spaces to look it balance. Okay, so I have here an example. Okay, ah nakikita naman siguro ang example yan eh. Okay, so in this example, you will see here there is the spaces that I'm mentioning. So for every parts of the letter, there's a need for you to use a double space. So I'm going to backspace this 1, 2. So you'll notice that I'm using two spaces here. So that is the two spaces. Okay, for each part. Okay, for this one, okay, 1, 2. Okay, two spaces. Another one is on this part, 1, 2. Okay, so that is the spaces in between the parts of the letter. So for each paragraph, you can use this space, one space. Okay, one space. Okay, and so to make it look like this. Okay, so see, so it is what we meant by an imaginary frame. Okay, so you can really see the balance of the spaces from the top, bottom, and on the left side. So without you using a, a ruler on this one, because you can just set it in your on your computer, then you can achieve that kind of balance. Okay, so what if your letter is too short? Let's say, for example, as short as these. Ayan. There's nothing wrong with that, but you can adjust it. So instead of just one space, you can add one space there. Just to achieve, you can add more spaces if you want to. So just to make it sure na that the letter does not only fit on the half of the page. So it doesn't look good if you're, let's say for example, this is your letter, this is the part of the letter, and then the content of your letter only maximizes the upper half of the letter. It doesn't look good. So as much as possible, you have this imaginary middle part of your letter and then try to extend the length of the letter as much as possible. Um, Lower than the imaginary half of the paper. So that will make it look more properly framed. So that is again the proper spacing, the proper margin for your lecture. So let's go back to the slide. Okay, so again that is for the margin and spacing. Okay, next we have the letterhead. So it is found at the uppermost part of the letter. It includes the firm's name. When we talk of firm's name, the name of the company, the address, the contact numbers, it oftentimes serves as an advertisement for the company or organization. So, for example, so this is a letter in URS. Okay. So, as you notice in URS, this is the letterhead that I'm mentioning to you. This is the letterhead. Okay. So, it bears the name of the organization, the logo of the organization, and even this one. There's an option if you would like to include the contact number on this part or even the address or even the email address, you can indicate that here. So that depends on the template of the company. Okay, so if you already have your letterhead, there's no need for you to include the conventional heading. Later on, I'll be discussing the conventional heading. So this is an example of a letterhead. So as you notice, this is what I mentioned of the 1.5 or the 2 inches um, margin on the upper side or on the top part of the letter. So here I think I am using 2 inches here. 2 inches. Okay, so that's it for the appearance of a business letter. Okay, so I will be the one to talk a lot so that we can control the time. Because if I will be still interacting to you, and that will consume much of our time. So it is as if consider it as if we are in a seminar. Then I'm just discussing to you the content of the seminar. So that's how I'm going to that's how I handle my online classes so that I can manage the time since I still have my classes later on. So now we will proceed on forms of indentation. So in other references, they do have the different terms for the different forms of indentation. Some would say full block format, some would have their block format, or some would have their semi-block format, and some have indentation in hanging indentation format. What I will be sharing to you here are the 3 commonly used forms of indentation that you can see many times in different letters. So the full block format, the modified block format, and the semi-block style. So how do these three differ? So this is an example of a full block format, to which I think is the easiest one to format. So as you notice, I use here this one is the letterhead. They have their letterhead here. So we just need to pay attention on the other parts of the letter from date line down to the signature. So as you notice here, it is the easiest way to format because all you have to do is just to place all the parts of the letter on its left margin. So just press Control L, then voila, you already have this kind of formatting. So again, the most formal of the 3 styles, in full block format or style, every line is left justified. So as you notice here, so uh, all the parts from here to here, they are all on the left margin. Okay, so that's the good thing about full block. For me, I am always using this kind of format because again, it's very easy to format. There's no need for me to enter the different parts of the letter. Then we also have the modified format or the modified block format. You notice that we move the heading and the date. So the heading and the date are on the right side or on the right margin. However, also the signature and the complementary clause are also on the right margin. This is one thing that you really need to remind of. Wherever the heading is or the date line is, the complementary clause and the signature always follow. So let's say, for example, if your heading is and your date line or your date is on the right margin, therefore the complementary clause, the signature, and the name of the recipient of the letter is also on the right side or on the right margin. So this is an example of a modified block format. So you put them on the right side. There are some instances wherein you indent it. So we call it the semi-block style. So it's similar with block style, with modified block style. However, as you notice, this modified block form, what made it different is that the margins, the paragraph in the body of the letter are all indented. So the paragraphs are all indented. Okay, are all indented. By the way, you can justify format this. When you say justify format, all lines are properly aligned. You can do that for the modified block format. You can also do that in the semi-block format. Okay, so you can justify it. So again, the difference between semi-block and the modified block is that in semi-block, it is only indented. The paragraphs are indented. Okay, so those are the different uh, forms of indentation. I'm sure that you already encountered several types of indentation in your experience uh, with your previous subjects, let's say in typing. So you have encountered a lot of or the different formats, but these are the commonly used formats in letter based on my experiences. I've been doing a lot of letters since I exposed in the academe. So these are the commonly used formatting that I observed. So I think that this can also be uh, these are also some of the most commonly used format in other organizations. Okay, since I'm also receiving letters from different organizations, and I also noticed that they are also using some of this or one of these formats that we are that I had already mentioned. Okay, so let's go back again for it to be particular of the format. So for the full block format, all the parts of the letter are on the left margin. For the modified format, the heading, the date, and the complementary clause and the signature are all at the right margin. However, the inside address, the salutation, and the body of the letter are all on the left margin. On the other hand, the semi-block format is similar to block format. The only difference is that the body of the letter of the semi-block format is indented. Okay? There's no need for you to be particular of the five spaces. I'm sure that some of you would say, sir, in our typing class, we are asked that the indentation should be five spaces. No, we do have our tab keypad at the tab in the keyboard wherein you just have to 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 press the tab board in your keyboard, and that will make that will make the indentation call this consistent with one another. Or you can only just adjust the margin in uh the margin in the or the ruler in the Word file in Microsoft Word. Okay. So these are the essential parts of a business letter. So you have the heading and date line, the inside address, the salutation, the body, the complementary clause, and the signature. And I'm pretty sure that all of you are all particular with these parts of the letter. Okay. So this will give you now an overview of the parts of a business letter. So here is the heading or letterhead. So if you already have your letterhead, you have already seen an example of a letterhead, and this is now the inside address. Okay, okay, this one is misplaced. It has to be placed here. My apology. It has to be placed here. Okay, then we have the salutation, and then we have the body text, and then we have the complementary clause, and then we have the signature, and then we have the name of the recipient of the letter. Okay, my apology for the date. It has to be placed before the inside address. It is placed after the heading. Okay, so what is heading and date line? When we talk of heading, it is the address of uh, the receiver of the address of the person. The address who wrote the address of the person who wrote the letter. Okay, the letter sender, your address. Okay, so again, when we talk of the heading, it is the address of the letter sender. Okay, so um, aside from using a heading, you can also use a letterhead. Okay, so a letterhead contains again the company name, the address, and contact information. So while some individuals may choose not to create a formal letterhead, it is always necessary to include a header with the sender's information. So heading is the address of the of the letter sender. So for example of a conventional heading, so you really need to be particular of the proper arrangement. It could be 3 to 4 lines, but not 5 lines. It's already that's already exaggerated. But can be 3 lines or 4 lines. It could be 2 lines for the address and 1 line for the date, or 3 lines for the uh, for the address and 1 line for the address. So 3 to 4 lines will do. So just like in our example. So just know how to cut the address. So let's say, for example, 175 Salcedo Street, we cut the street. then Legazpi Village, then Makati City. You can put the Makati below the Legazpi Village. That depends on you if there's still sufficient space. But if there is insufficient space, then you can attach Makati City beside the Legazpi Village. So do not cut, let's say, 175 Salcedo, and then your street is placed here. Okay, that is incorrect already. Or Legazpi, Legazpi, and then Village on the other line. So do not do that. Okay, so that is incorrect. So one line they should be in compact. Okay, let's say if it's a street compact, the street the line for the street is in compact. Okay, just like the example that we showed here. For a modern heading, we call it modern heading or the letterhead. Okay, so I've already showed you how letterhead looks like on a letter. So modern heading or letterhead can do. If you already have your letterhead, there's no need for you to have your conventional heading. Instead, right after the letterhead, then you can put your date line here if you will be using the full block format. Okay? If you will be using modified and semi-block, then put the date line here. Okay? So that's for the modern heading. Again, for the modern heading or letterhead, there's no need for you to indicate the address. Okay, that's already redundant. So instead of that, just indicate the date line. Then we have the inside address. So this is the address of the recipient, meaning to say the person who will be receiving your letter. So if applicable, the first line in the address block should include the recipient's name. If you know the person who will be receiving your letter, then reflect the name of the person. And if you don't know the name and you only just know the position, let's say for example you're applying for a job and you don't know the name of the HR manager, you can just indicate HR manager and then the succeeding lines will be the company's address or business establishment's address. Okay? So again, if you know the name of the person whom you will be writing with, then reflect the name. If you do not know the name, then you know the position of the person who will be receiving the letter, then you have to indicate that in your letter. Okay? The third and fourth lines are designated for the actual address. For example, Mr. James De Vera, he is the manager of the ECG Chemical Company. And then you can specify here the complete address. Okay, the complete address. So there are some people who are very much particular of the title. Okay, very much particular of the title. So if they would like to be addressed as doctor, then reflect that they are a doctor. If they would like to be addressed as an attorney, just reflect attorney. If they are if the person is a woman and you don't know if that woman is already married or not, it is safe to use miss. Okay, again, if you if you know the name of the person and you identify that person as a woman, however, you do not know if the person is already married or is still single, it is safe to use miss. Use miss. Okay? Use miss. MS period. Okay? So then after that is the position of the person and then the address of the company. In our next example, you notice that I use this company. Okay? When do we use this kind of format? It is only used if and only if the communication is within the organization or within the company. Let's say, for example, this Mr. Don Cochico is working in ECG Chemical Company. And then you are also working in ECG Chemical Company. Okay, again, the scenario goes like this. You are working in ECG Chemical Company, and then you are writing a letter to Mr. Don Pacheco, who is also working in ECG Chemical Company. So that's what we meant by communication within the organization. So instead of just reflecting the name of the company, just reflect this company. Because on the first place, in your letter, you had already specified in your heading the letterhead or the letterhead of the company. So it's redundant if you will still be reflecting again the name of the company since the communication is within the organization. So in lieu of that, use this company. Like for example, in our case, let's say uh, I am writing a letter to Ma'am Merly Facultad, who is Dean of the College of Business Administration. And I am part of College of Business Administration as one of its faculty. So instead of just writing Professor Maria Merly A. Facultad, Dean, College of Business Administration, University of Rizal System Antipolo Campus. Instead of writing that kind of format, what I will be doing is that I will be just writing Professor Maria Merly A. Facultad, Dean College of Business Administration, this university. I will not be specifying the University of Rizal System Antipolo Campus anymore because the communication is within the organization. So that is now the case if you will be using this company, this organization, this university, this institution, that depends kung anong tawag nyo dyan. So if you are working in a company, of course, this company. Okay, so these are the two scenarios. So one, the first scenario is that you are writing a letter outside of the organization. Then the second scenario is what if you are writing a letter within the organization? So what should be the format that you should be using? Okay, so that's how it should be written. Then we have salutation. Different circumstances determine which salutation or greeting is most appropriate. Okay, so we used to write dear in a letter if it's either a friendly letter or different kinds of letter. So use dear when the recipient's name or title is known. Let's say, for example, dear Mr. Doe, dear sales director. Okay, do not use, let's say, for example, the name of the person is Mr. James De Vera. You're writing to Mr. James De Vera. Do not say, dear Mr. James De Vera. Do not use that. Instead, use dear Mr. De Vera. Just only use the surname of the person, but never use the complete name or even the first name. It's so inappropriate if you will be writing a formal letter, then you just say, Dear Mr. James. Okay, Dear Mr. James. Okay? Let's say if you use, let's say, Attorney James De Vera. Dear Attorney De Vera. Or let's say, you're writing a letter to Dr. James De Vera. Dear Dr. Rivera. Okay? You are writing a letter to Architect James De Vera. Dear Architect De Vera. Okay? You are writing a letter to Engineer James De Vera. You say, Dear Engineer De Vera. So whatsoever that is reflected in your inside address, that will be the title that you should be reflecting in your salutation. Understand? Okay. You should be particular on that. Then, when the name of our title is unknown, use to whom it may concern. To whom it may concern. So that is the correct capitalization. To whom it may concern. Okay? You notice the capitalization, capital T, W, I, M, and C. So that should be the capitalization. Okay? And always punctuate the salutation of a business letter with a colon. Do not use a comma because comma is used for informal letter. Semicolon is never used in a letter. I still see some who are using semicolon in their letter. So for a formal letter, to make it business-like, so we should use a colon. Tutuldok. Do not use a comma or semicolon. Instead, use a colon right after the letter. Right after the salutation. Say, Dear Mr. Doe, colon. Dear Sales Director, colon. To whom it may concern, colon. Dear Mr. De Vera, colon. Understand? Okay? Because I still see some who are using semicolon and um, a comma. Okay? So you can use sir if you are using sir, colon. Madam, colon. Okay? So, my dear sir, my dear madam, dear sir, my dear Mr. Reyes, dear madam. Do not use my dear Mr. Reyes. Okay, it's for less formal one. Okay, then the body of the letter, of course, this is the juice of the letter. So pay attention on this because I'm giving you technique on how you are going to arrange the ideas, what is expected from you when someone is reading a letter. So it is divided into subcategories. The greetings, the introduction, the main content, the summary, and the expression of gratitude. So these are the five categories, subcategories that you have to reflect in your letter. So never mind the three, it's five subcategories. Okay, so let's say for example, this letter. So I begin the letter with a greetings, good day. Okay? Or just say greetings. That's up to you. But in my case, I always use good day. Okay? It is part of Filipino culture that whenever we are writing a letter, we always begin it with a greeting. Because some reference would not use that kind of greetings. But I suggest that every time that you are writing a letter, begin it with good day. That is the first paragraph. Do not attach it with the introduction because some are attaching good day together with the introduction. Okay, next part is the introduction. What is the introduction? Say something, give us an idea on what the letter is all about. What the letter is all about in the introduction. Let's say, this is relative to the invitation of Teatro ng Mamamayan Community Theater Development Contest of the DSWD Field Office 4A to attend a meeting for the orientation on the upcoming community-based theater contest. The meeting will be held on June 14, 2017 at DSWD Office, Alabang, Muntinlupa City. So on that letter, on this introduction, I'm already giving the reader an idea on what the letter is all about. Let's say, for example, you're applying for a job. This is to view my intention to apply for a secretarial position in your company. I read an announcement at the Philippine Daily Inquirer regarding the said matter. Period. So you are giving now the idea on the letter, giving the idea to the reader about what the letter is all about. Then the second and the third paragraph, that depends if you have your second or third paragraph. So the second or the third paragraph tells us about the main content. So it's an only just an additional information about the content of the letter. So the project aims to organize community-based theater group that will feature stories written and performed by students in secondary and tertiary level all over Calabarzon. The participating students will undergo workshop which will provide more opportunities to our students, etc., etc. So that gives now an additional information of the content of the letter. So then we have the summary. This is a new, the summary will give us na parang you are just reiterating what you have mentioned in a very brief manner. And also in your summary, you really need to express that you're expecting them something. Okay, ano yung you're expecting something from them. So let's say this is a new venue for them to learn a different perspective to realize their potential. And this is now the line wherein you will be expecting something from them. Parang you're trying to persuade them that this should be the response on the letter that I sent you. They say, I am hoping for your positive response regarding this matter. Sometimes they add, God bless you. Okay, you can add God bless you on that. So if you would like to have a divine intervention for the approval of your letter. And also, always end it with a gratitude. Thank you very much. So you begin it with a polite manner by saying good day, and then you end it with a polite manner by saying thank you very much. Never ever forget to say thank you at the end of the letter. Okay? So this how your letter should be dissected or should be chopped. Okay? Because these are the things that expected from you to present in your letter. Do not present a letter wherein they are the introduction, the main content, and summary are compact as one paragraph. Do not do that. Okay, so take note of this. Take note of this template so that you will be guided on how you will be presenting your letter. Again, Begin with greetings, the introduction, provide idea of what the letter is all about. The main content, discuss the what is the letter all about. Then summary, you will be uh, recapitulating what you would like to happen in your letter, and you are expressing what you are expecting from the person who will be reading your letter. And then finally, end it with a gratitude. Then we have complimentary close. So it's also a polite way of saying goodbye to to the person who will be reading your work. So will be receiving your work. So others include cordially yours, best wishes, and best regards. But in business, we are always using sincerely yours, very yours truly. Okay, so you can choose any one of them. Uh, cordially yours, uh, sincerely yours, very yours truly. Okay, and then the name of the person. And then finally, the signature. In letters that are sent via email, the signature is simply the sender's name and title typed immediately below the complimentary clues. Okay, signature. Okay, so those are the six basic parts of business letter. However, we also have the so-called special parts of a business letter that you can include in your letter, especially the attention line and the subject line. So these are the two commonly used special parts of a business letter. And sometimes you will notice when you are writing your letter via email, you will notice that there are some uh, part part there wherein you have to write CC or BCC. We call it the copy. Okay, so that's a digital form of letter, the email. Okay, so what is an attention line? So it is addressing the letter to a particular individual in the company, which is done through attention line. So let's say, for example, I am writing a letter to, and this one. So attention line contains the word attention or ATTN. It can be written above the heading on the same line with the salutation, two spaces below the salutation, and two spaces below the inside. But I suggest that you have to write it after the inside address. So what's the purpose of the attention line? So I am writing a letter, let's say for example, to the university president who is Dr. Nasity Pascual. However, I would like the letter to pass through first on the attention of the Vice President for RDEB and the Director for Research. So if you would like a letter to be transmitted first on the specific office and with courtesy to the superior of these people, then you can use attention line. So, for example, uh, you are someone invites me to be a speaker. My immediate superior is um, Professor Maria Merli A. Facultad. And the person who wrote the letter would like to inform Ma'am Maria Facultad that they are inviting me to be their speaker. They will not be writing a letter directly to me. Instead, with courtesy to my superior, they will be writing a letter to Professor Maria Facultad. However, in order for Ma'am Maria Facultad to address the letter to me, what the letter sender must do is to have an attention. So, let's say ilalagay niya dyan is Professor Maria Merli Facultad, Dean College of Business Administration, this university. Attention, Mr. Norberto M. Nataño, Faculty, College of Business Administration. Okay? Or this university. So, that's will be the channel. Then, the moment that Ma'am Facultad read the letter, then he will be calling me attention. Attention. Okay, she will be informing me na, Mr. Natanyo, there is a letter for you. We just like to inform that you are being invited to serve as a speaker of this institution. Okay, so that's how attention works. Okay, if you would like, parang it seems like pagpaalam nyo nga ako sa boss ko, ganito ang gawin ninyo. Parang gano'n. Pagpaalam nyo nga ako sa boss ko. Something like that. However, that's only just one of the situation in which attention is being used. The same way with this example. Okay? So again, if the letter is directly directly the letter is intended for someone else and that someone else has a superior, then you have to direct first the attention to the superior of the person so that the superior of that person will now direct that attention to the actual recipient of the letter. So that is how attention works. Okay, so that's how it should be written. But I suggest if you will be using the attention, it has to be written after the inside address because that is the most traditional one. Because commonly it is used in many institutions. So use that kind of attention. This kind of format for the attention. Now subject line. So it tells us what the letter is all about. Tungkol ba saan yung letter? So in your introduction, you can already identify what the letter is all about. But let's say, for example, if I am the person who will be receiving the letter and I don't have much time to which one I will be prioritizing. I do have a lot of letters to read and I don't know which one I should be prioritizing. So in order to help me to identify that it should be prioritized, then you have to indicate the subject line. So if the person read that on the subject line that request for financial statement, let's say request for financial statement 2021. So without me yet reading the whole content of the letter, and then I read the subject line that okay, this has something to do with financial report, say financial report on the subject line, then I will be prioritizing it. So it's one way of getting the attention of the recipient of the letter for them to get an idea without them reading yet the whole content of the letter. And if they have that subject line, then they will be prioritizing it. So it's same way with in when you're writing an email, diba? In an email, so there is a subject line there, wherein if you open the inbox of the email, you will see there that the subject line is reflected. So if you will be selecting which one to read, there's no need for you to open one by one all the things that sent to your email, wherein what you will be just reading are the subject lines that are reflected in the email. So you will know which one to be prioritized. It is same true with if you will be if you do have a lot of letters to read and the subject line is specified there, then you will be just uh, categorizing which one to prioritize or not by just merely reading the subject line. So that's the importance of the subject line. So it is written at the top of the letter, below the inside address, on the same line with the salutation. But in my case, I always write it after the inside address. So if you already have the attention line, then you can write it after the attention line. So align with the attention line, below the attention line, but of the same line. Okay, so if you're saving space, you can also if you are saving space, you can also write the subject line align with the salutation. So you can bring it down here. That is where you put the subject. Okay, so just like request for research on RAM, that depends. So there's no the subject line shouldn't be too lengthy. Okay, so mga maximum 5 words or 6 words lang yan. It doesn't have to be lengthy. So it has to be what the letter is all about. Let's say for example, it's you're applying for a job. Then you indicate subject application for secretarial position. Let's say request for uh, financial statement fiscal year 2001, 2020, 2001. Simple as that. So it doesn't have to be a sentence. It's usually expressed in the form of a phrase. Then we have identification lines. So there are some instances wherein if you will be working with your boss and then your boss are always asking you to write a letter for you. So it serves as from the term itself identification, it will help to identify who wrote the letter by just merely specifying the initial. So if I'm the boss and then I ask you to write a letter for me, then you as a secretary you would indicate there an identification line. Then you can do so. It's for reference. So let's say for example, um, the person who is reflected in the signature is your boss, but it's not your boss who really wrote the letter. Okay, it's the secretary. You are the secretary. So you can use identification line. So it could be written as NMN colon CAE or NMN slash CAE. So that is the initial of the name. So whereas NMN is the initial of the person in the signature, while CAE is the initial of the typist, the one who wrote the letter, who encoded the letter. So it is placed at the bottom part of the letter. It is always at the bottom part of the letter. Oftentimes, a very small font is used. Let's say mga 6 or 7 font size can be used. Let's say, for example, this is your letter. It can be written at this bottom part, bottom part of the letter. Okay, it's very small. 7 or 6 font will do. It's only just for the purpose of identifying who wrote the letter. Then we have enclosure. There are some instances where in your letter you indicate that there are other things that are attached in your letter. It's for the purpose of the reader of the letter to recognize that aside from the letter itself, there are other things that are included in your letter. Let's say, for example, it is placed inside an envelope. Then in that envelope, there are a lot of attachments. Then if you do have the enclosure, then the person who will be reading your work again will have an idea on what are the contents or is the content of the letter. Okay, it is placed at the bottom part of the letter. Before, if you have your identification line before the identification line. Okay, it's written after the signature or the name of the person who wrote the letter. Next is copy. So a copy is used if and only if other person who also received the same letter. Again, a copy is used. Let's say, for example, aside from the person reflected in the letter, other person are also receiving the same letter. So in email, you see that there is BCC or CC or carbon copy. So carbon copy, it is carbon copy CC. That means that aside from you, there are other person who also received the letter. So it is placed at the bottom part of the letter, and there are two ways to write it. You can just write C colon and then the name of the person, Dr. Susan Mendez, or just write copy, Engineer Arthur Lopez. So let's say, for example, you write a letter to me, Mr. Norberto M. Nataño, and the same letter was also given to Dr. Susan Mendez, so you write C, or the same letter is also it's also given to Engineer Arthur Lopez, so use copy Engineer Arthur Lopez. So it is placed at the bottom part of the letter. If there are other special parts, it comes after the enclosure. So if you will be specifying enclosure and copy, the arrangement will be enclosure, copy, identification line. Wherein identification line must always come at the last part or at the bottom part of the paper. So again, if you have enclosure and then you have a copy, the arrangement will be enclosure, copy, and identification line. But again, um, it's only just a case-to-case basis if you will be using all these special line. But attention line and subject lines are the commonly used special parts of the letter. Okay, so thank you very much for your time, and you have filled in again your Being with Sir Batch learning bean. So thank you very much for your time listening to our discussion. So